Fine.
Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. I just want to let everyone know that this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to, I'm Aisha Husbands. I'm the chair of the CCC D75 Safety Committee. Today, we're going to have a brief presentation regarding the new security doors system that has been approved for the New York City Public Schools. We're joined by Mr. Ramprasad, the Security Director for the New York Public Schools, along with his teams and members from the Division of School Safety. To ensure that we utilize the short time that we have available, we will first hear from our presenters, followed by questions from the public. We're going to be joined by Commanding Officer Rangel from the Bronx. Thankfully, come short notice, and I appreciate his testimony. Mr. Ramprasad, the floor is yours.
So I'm not able to hear you. Sounds like you went out for a few. I'm not sure if everybody else is having that same problem.
I'm
Can
not
you get
sure. Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, we hear you now.
We
Yep.
can hear
Okay.
you. And Mark Rampersant, this is Amy Sy, co-president, and you should be able to share your screen now. You're a co-host.
Yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna use a deck on this. Let me see. Yeah, I'm not sure we're gonna use a deck on this because if you leave it up to me, there will be no deck to be shared here. Let me just get some technical support here on the sharing of the deck. Can you guys see that? Share.
Yes, we could see it.
Are you able to see that? All right, cool. We just threw something together here. So, want to talk. Hold on a second. Let me just make sure we can move the screen. All right. So the ask was for us to come here today and talk to you a little bit about the door locking system. Talk about where the DOE is in terms of said door locking system and some of the work that is done to incorporate
Mr.
this.
Ramprasad,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a little static. I'm not sure if it's the mic or, but it's difficult to hear.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you. It's just a lot of static. But continue.
I'm not sure how to fix that. Not sure how to fix that, John. How do I fix that, John?
You're asking the wrong guy. It's probably your headset. I don't know if you can like unplug it and plug it in again. Just try
Yep.
to clean up the connection.
Yep. All right. So let me figure this out. Can you hear me now?
Still a little scratchy.
Still scratchy. All right. I don't know what to do about that, John. I'm gonna do my best here. So over the summer, New York City Public Schools was tasked to look for a door locking system that will meet the expectations of the New York City Public Schools. We worked with various city agencies as well other internal partners to identify a door locking system that we believe meets the expectations not only of New York City Public Schools but of our first responders. One of the things that we did is convene a regular meeting, hearing from stakeholders to hear about some of the concerns that were expressed. So we believe that we've identified a system that meets the overall expectations that allows the school safety agents to communicate through from their desk, communicate with parents and other visitors seeking seeking to gain access to the school. It has a remote release feature that will allow a keypad, a press button access to the school, the use of technology. It will allow for our first responders to have access to our schools without having to have an actual key. This will appear as an actual key. We'll talk more about that. And the system is being installed in our DOE owned and operated buildings, our schools. We are intentional about including all schools, and there's a way by which we're going to scale up. Every school safety agent who is monitoring and utilizing this system will, in fact, be trained by their school safety training division and their in-service training unit. We've identified 2 doors in each one of our schools, and this was at the recommendation of our partners, first responders in the NYPD. In the event that we do have an actual emergency in our schools, they can gain access from 2 points. We identified our main entrance, and more than likely it'll be the cafeteria service delivery entrance as our secondary point of entrance, but for some of our schools, it may be our AED entrance. The door locking system is going to remain activated during the academic day. I can't express enough that this door locking system is not a system that is meant to keep parents out of our buildings. This is a system that has been identified to keep those who have ill intentions to do harm out of our schools. The school safety agents will be trained and reminded of their responsibility to exercise courtesy, professionalism, respect. This is not a system used to target any parent. This system is really to give us time to stop and give us the necessary time in the event of someone trying to access our schools to do harm. The system will allow the agent, again, the ability to see the person who is ringing the doorbell, sort of like your ring systems at your homes. Sort of, that's probably the best example that I can give you to equate this device to is your ring system at home. We've had many questions about whether or not all the doors in the school will be locked utilizing this system. This system has one specific purpose, and that purpose is for a main door only, the main entrance of the school. All other schools, all other doors have existing door alarms on them that when penetrated, a sound, a piercing sound is generated, and school safety agents and other school staff will respond accordingly. We identified a system that will give us the ability to scale, meaning as our schools become more advanced and they get the camera systems in them, this system will have the ability to scale up into that system so that we can have it directly into our school's IPDVS system. I'm looking at 2 things, so I apologize if I'm a little off. Looking at an incident in a school. Um, our focus is really going to start the installation for our elementary schools first, our pre-K sites, and some of our lease spaces that are coming close to the end of their lease. I'll let my partners talk more about that. Um, it is really it is really, the focus is really for us to have a system that will allow for us to utilize technology to help not only fortify but enforce our existing safety practices. I can't say enough about the importance of this system not being utilized to keep parents out of schools. That's not what it's meant to do. For our parents who are English language learners, we are going to follow the same process that we currently do in our schools, utilizing the I Speak posters, or there's a central number that school safety agents currently utilize to get a person who speaks the language of the parent who is seeking to gain access to our schools. This is what this system looks like. There are some technical aspects of the system that I will let my partners talk about, but this is really what you're going to be looking at in our schools. On the right, you'll see there is a monitor. This monitor will allow the agent to view, communicate, and give and grant access to the individual seeking to access the school. The item on the left is what you'll see on the outside of the school. The top portion of it, there's the speaker, and there is the video camera, as well the ring system, the button to gain access. And the bottom portion and the middle portion is really for our first responders.
Hey, Mark,
We do, yep, go
I'm
ahead, Joe.
sorry, just a flag for you. We're still looking at the cover slide.
Oh,
So what
Are
you're,
you?
yeah, we're.
so you're
looking
not
to
seeing
describe-
anything that
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
talking about?
no.
Oh,
And if you
very
could
interesting.
possibly, yeah, you'd have to go to the next page. And if you could possibly, you're still very choppy. Is there any way you can take off the mic? Let
You
the
guys see
world
that?
hear your voice.
Now we got it. Now we're good.
Okay. Wait. You lost that, right? Or you still have it?
Yeah.
Oh God,
No,
this is
blacked out now.
horrible. This is horrible. John, why don't you just talk a little bit about the device itself while I try
Sure.
to figure this out?
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you for letting us join you today, and hopefully we can answer any of the questions you might have. I'll jump back to where Mark left off with describing the actual unit, and that's the picture right there. If you look on the right, that's the video screen, which will sit inside at the school safety desk, and that'll be where the picture comes up from the camera that's at the doors that the system is attached to. And the item on the left is the actual keypad. And if you see, there's a camera there, there's a microphone that you can speak into. There's also a swipe pad or a touchpad where you can use a key card, an access card, and there's also a touchpad where you can punch in a code. And those are for first responders. When they get to a building, if they need to get into the building, they'll have the ability to use those devices and have access to the building in case there's a bad guy inside the building and they need to get in. That's the way that they would access it. And there'll be a lot of training involved with both the school safety agents and the first responders on how this system is going to work and what their role is and how to use it. So everybody will have the tools that they need once all the systems are up and running. As Mark described it, it very much is exactly like a Ring doorbell. If anybody's ever used that, or a video buzzer system in an apartment building in New York City, somebody comes up, they push the button, they speak into the microphone. The school safety agent will ask them who they are and why they're there. And as long as it's a legitimate reason, they push the button. There's a electric door strike that will allow the door to unlock and somebody can walk in. You will always be able to exit the building. The panic hardware inside the building will always allow everybody to leave in the event of a fire or another emergency. It's not going to lock it from the inside. It's only locking it from the outside.
Yep,
that-
I see that we already got hands up, and I know that we're halfway through. I know we have 30 minutes carved out for this. So, Ms. Husbands, I'm not sure how you want to proceed with the questions, or Madam President, how are you going to proceed with the questions? But we see hands up already.
Would you like to take some questions now, or do you want to complete?
Absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, we're pretty much complete. I mean, this is the system overall. The training for school staff is going to commence as we start the installation. We had a couple of schools where we did prototypes just to kind of measure the ability to install the device in different schools, glass doors, wooden doors, metal doors, some of our schools that are 100 years old versus schools that are brand new. But we'll definitely take questions on topic whenever however you want to do this. I don't know if you guys want to do the calling, we're going to do the calling, or however you would like.
If we can just share the presentation, if we can just continue the presentation till the end, and then we'll just do a Q&A whatever time you can all be here in this space. So we
Yeah,
want
that's pretty much the end. We could take
That's
questions.
it. So,
Yeah.
so, Commanding Officer Rangel, did you have a question?
No, I do not have a question right now. I'm good.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Paulette Healy, do you have a question? You can unmute yourself.
Hi, Mark. Hi, John. It's Paulette Healy from CCSC. And I've already seen it in the chat, but a major concern for us is making sure that our schools are still accessible school safe havens for children who are trying to find safe places to hide during a during a neighborhood shooting. We had one yesterday in Sunset Park, right in front of Lillian Raskus's high school. And if these doors were already implemented, our children would not have been able to go back into the building when the shooting commenced. And thankfully, we only had 2 students injured, and they're in the hospital and they're recovering, but it could have been a lot worse. So this is the lived experience that we're talking about. I also wanted to amplify that, we, in D75, we also serve children who are hearing impaired and visually impaired. So, when there is an alarm of, something that's going on within the school, are you thinking about like implementing, like strobe lights or, vibration alarms and things of that nature for children to be aware that there's something going on in the school for those who can't hear the alarms
Right.
going off?
We're going to start with the commanding officer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well, was that for me, Aisha? Okay, sorry about that.
I'm sorry, continue.
Okay. And thirdly, because I do see other hands, there was an incident last year where a child couldn't get back into the school because of an automatic locking door because he had gone into the schoolyard. He had forgotten his coat after recess and was out in the cold in January for 30 minutes before a parent who was walking by saw that child trying to get back into the school and ran into the school to let them know that there was a child locked outside because there weren't any cameras in that particular area of the entrance, and school safety didn't know that there was a child still locked outside of the yard. So how are we going to make sure that, whatever it is that we're implementing, I mean, this all looks very high tech and, very modern, but how are we making sure, in conjunction with these school walkthroughs, that we are mindfully installing these systems in places where situations like this can happen?
Okay, so you asked a series of questions. I'm trying to keep up to make sure that we answer all of your questions. One, you asked about strobe lights in vibration systems. That's not what this system is, and that sounds like a separate conversation that we'd be more than happy to oblige you in. All right, but I want to focus on this particular product here, respectfully. You talked about the particular case where the young person walked out the door and couldn't gain access back into the building. That is the case. That's the case with all of our doors. Anybody who exits the building should not gain access through any other door other than the main entrance, because the main entrance door is the only door that is supervised. In that case, the door alarms should have been activated in that school, and the minute this young person pushed the door open, the alarms should have sounded, and an adult should have come to that location. That is one that I worked with worked with directly, and I know all of the concerns with that door. This young person should not have been allowed to exit a building through a door other than the main entrance, and should have told an adult that he left his coat outside. But that's a different story, right? And so when you talk about young people coming back to the school for safe havens, one of the things that we stressed is the only time that these doors will be inactive is when there is morning entry taking place and during dismissal. We are intentional about telling principals that dismissal is not when the kids leave the building and they're just out of the area. They need to keep the doors the school accessible for a period of time that young people have exited and cleared the area, right? So we're not telling schools to deactivate the system. And when I say deactivate, I mean open the other doors. Our schools have banks of doors. Many of them have 4 doors at the main entrance. The other 3 doors will be open and accessible whenever morning entry is taking place so young people can freely enter and exit, as well as our school staff. And during dismissal, the same thing applies. That is the time where we have multiple adults providing supervision to the entry and exit process. So there are adults standing outside supporting our young people as they transition to the bus or other transportation hubs. So as our schools are in fact safe havens, we are reminding school staff to continue to keep the door open for a period of time while that dismissal process takes place and during the transition for after school programs. I hope that's
Thank
helpful.
you. It was, thank you. And I'll connect with you about the strobing and vibration systems later. Thank you,
Yes,
Mark.
ma'am. Yep.
Okay, thank you. We're going to move on to Mr. Craig Spencer. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
we
can.
hear you.
Oh, blessings. Thank you. Sorry I'm not on camera. I'm getting ready to leave the house to pick up my daughter. Mr. Ramperson, great to have you. Thank you for giving us this time. I need to uplift Ms. Healy's contention in terms of specifics. This proposal is not specific enough for our community. There does need to be an additional conversation for what Ms. Healy mentioned in terms of those that are hearing, not only students, but parents and loved ones that are hearing impaired or sight impaired. My question specifically is, you talk about principals, and this conversation seems to be top heavy. How do we as parent advocates, who do we go to on a district level? And do you have somebody at Superintendent Louison's office that you correspond with? Do they have an idea in terms of the schools that they're looking to introduce this in to the near future? So that way, I mean, the next council that's elected, whether it be CCSC or CCD 75, can follow up with you, because I know your time is, Mr. Ramperson, your time is precious, and you're on the top level. But who do we speak to on a district level in terms of these concerns, and what schools are being targeted first for this, and that way we can monitor? Thank you.
Yep. So that there's a family advocacy person at every superintendency, and every one of the districts have a borough safety director who is going to be intimately involved in the installation and training for this system. So you can tie into your superintendents, and once we start the process of implementation, as a matter of fact, even before that, the superintendents will be well versed in all the intricacies of this particular initiative, and they can answer any questions for you and take any parental concerns.
All righty. Thank you. We'll follow up. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll take a question from Ms. Luce. You can unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you, Aisha. My name is Lupe Hernandez. I'm here representing one of the D75 schools, that's inside the American Sign Language School, as well as Lower English Learning School. I've spoken to many of you regarding their current non-ADA accessible PA system that does impact this community, the hard hearing deaf community, both our students, our teachers, as well as many alumni volunteers that are coming in and out of this building on a regular basis. It has become a second home for many of these elder seniors that went to this school. So I think I've spoken to some of you personally in regards to the fact that currently the school's PA system is not ADA compliance for our hard of hearing and deaf community. That means the lockdowns, the shelter-ins are not accessible to this community. I know that we were discussing temporary fix of television screens in the hallway. However, with this added layer of this locked door system, I would like to know, I want to uplift what Ms. Healy and Mr. Spencer were saying, and it does apply to this particular conversation. I think one of our biggest questions are threefold. One, how will this system coming in and out of this building impact this community? Is it going to be accessible to this community, and in what way? Because what you described as far as videos and being able to speak and such may not be accessible to all of the populations, people in this population group. Second, like I mentioned before, the volunteers that are coming in and out of this building, again, they are also deaf. So it's just a matter of having that accessibility. What will this look like? How will it work? And are we taking the necessary steps to be able to provide this community accessibility to their building the way they have become accustomed to being able to come in and out?
Yeah, so I definitely appreciate that question, and thank you for uplifting the need for this particular population of young people. And so the installation of this system will go hand in hand with a specific training that is offered by our partners at D75, who is used to working with the population of students here, and we're going to ensure that we are putting in the necessary, and I'll use the term loosely, bells and whistles that are going to help ensure a smooth transition. Again, I will reiterate that the concern for you is really around the times of which young people are not transitioning with supervision, and it's outside of the morning entry dismissal process, because any other time the doors are open and they will still have the free accessibility to enter and exit. As it relates to our volunteers who are entering, I'm not sure of the time frame by which they start the entry process. I know that the school safety agents that are assigned to that particular building are well versed, well supported, and they are also signers themselves. So in this particular school, we will work with not only the administration, but our partners in D75 to incorporate a training that ensures that all of the necessary steps are followed and there is no delay for our young people to access or exit this facility at in a suitable time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Rappersford. I have one follow-up question. The device that will be on the outside of the door, the outside of the school, will this particular, for schools or communities, I can't tell if there's a video screen on that portion, meaning would the person on the other side outside of the school actually be able to see someone signing to them from the inside?
No.
And if not, how can you please explain to me how this is going to work for this community? Because if not, I'm quite perplexed, and I just thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing.
And no, I hear you, and this is definitely one that has sort of rocked me for a few, right? Because I'm saying to myself as I look at my partners here, this is one that we didn't think about, right? So I'm not sure, Joe, John, or if you guys thought about this, but this one is a little bit perplexing for me.
It was the first thing that came to my mind when this was announced, and I know I've been ringing your guys' bells regarding this particular school, but I'm only representing one school. I know there are hundreds of other schools that are probably dealing with this. And so that was my huge concern. And I just want to make sure that those concerns get uplifted and we think about that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Thank you.
We're talking about the M347, right?
Yes, we are talking about 347.
Yeah, very, very familiar with that school. I talk to Dorothy Kohler every once in a while when she calls me we built the alumni center in that building for them. So I'm very familiar with the location, and you're right. This is not something that was front of mind for us, but it's something that I'm sure we can solve, and I'm glad you raised it for us. You know, we're used to making reasonable accommodations for these kind of things, and having a video screen on the outside of particular schools where this might be an issue, we'll definitely investigate that and get back to you with what we need to do there. But it's definitely something we will need to address.
Hello, I just wanted to say that there is a school in the South Bronx that also has a hearing education service program. And also there are other programs within other students within D75 schools that may be that are hearing impaired that could utilize this accommodation as well. So, and going forward, if we work together in implementation of, choosing or developing these sorts of systems, I think this would help on the front end. So we wouldn't have to go on the back end and try to make accommodations.
Yeah, we definitely hear you and definitely appreciate what you share here today. We know that this is more the exception than the rule, but we do appreciate you guys uplifting this for us. We know that we need to go back, at least for those particular schools that have a specific need. We need to make adjustments to the system to ensure that it sort of incorporates the needs of all our students. So we definitely appreciate that. We're not shying away from it. We stand up and admit that this system may present some level of difficulty for our young people who are hearing impaired. This is the first that I'm at least hearing of this, but you are 100% correct. Embracing the entire community in a conversation around an idea of an implementation or creation of a system is a way by which we avoid these kinds of things from happening. So accept our apologies in that respect, but I can tell you that this was a very difficult one for us, considering the amount of pressure and the amount of incidents that have occurred where intruders have made their way in through the front door of our school, and most notably in recent, a person who was just released from a mental institution and made his way into a K-2 site, walked right in the front door. And our school safety agent immediately went into action. A struggle ensued. Well, I'll tell you, at the end, it took 8 adults to bring this person down and to handcuff this individual. We're not sure what this person's intentions were in the school, but we later learned that the person was just released and was on medication, so we don't know what the intentions were. And I'm not sharing that with you to embellish the need for a system, but we have to embrace technology to ensure safety and security in our school, considering the many different things that are occurring around our schools and in the neighborhoods of schools. So we hear you loud and clear. We know that there is some additional work to do, and we are assuring you that that work will be done.
Thank you. If you can also keep in mind visually impaired students as well as nonverbal students and staff.
Absolutely.
Thank you. If anyone else, Mr. Rampersad, I know, can you stay or do you have to go? I know you had 30 minutes available.
Yeah, no, I thank you for recognizing that. I'm actually 5 minutes late, and so is John, and so is
Can I
Joe.
just
We're
jump
all
in?
late for a meeting. Yeah.
We
Yep.
have,
I appreciate it. So I just wanted to say, and I hear you, Mark and John, about reaching out to D75 families in regards to the needs of the students. But I want you to be very aware that these are not just students with disabilities, but they are families, members that come to their schools or engage with the schools and be involved who also may have their own disabilities. So, making sure that the community is involved in this process of ADA compliance. And for those that are really challenged with, being involved in their schools with doors being closed, if it's a security safety issue. So I want to just address on the high school level, because many of our high schools, especially one particular is in District 2. It is our 2 D75 programs that's in the Facing High School campus, which has 6 high schools, and they have different schedules throughout the day. And there is constant movement in that building, even during lunchtime when the kids are leaving to go get lunch. So I just want to think of these very difficult scheduling of interactions of students and community members and, just families that are moving in and out of the campuses, and being aware of, because it's not just, intruders that are from the community, but also there are situations where, family members are going through custody battles. They may bring their personal issues to schools. And so how do we keep everyone sane enough to be safe for every one of those students and staff that's in the building? So I appreciate you guys taking the time here, and I won't take you guys anymore, but appreciate the continuous conversation involving us in D75.
Thank you very much. And we definitely look forward to further dialogue, right, so that we can talk about those specific concerns that you've raised. We appreciate the opportunity to be here before you. I'm sure this is not the last time we'll get to share this space with you, but they are sounding the alarm for us to get on the next meeting, which is actually about the door locking system. So, Ms. Husbands, thank you for the invitation. We look forward to future invitations and future conversations. And Madam President, always good to see you. And thank you for your continued advocacy on behalf of the students of our school system.
Thank you. Thank you. We're going to say goodbye to Mr. Rampasad and Mr. Shea, but everyone else can stay. We have Commanding Officer Rangel here. He was gracious enough to come at the last moment. Because of what occurred yesterday, there was a shooting that, an incident. Ms. Healy spoke about it earlier. And I just wanted him to speak to protocols around dangers around the campuses and what the protocol is, what kind of things happened yesterday. He's not going to speak specifically about what occurred, but just the protocols that are in place when those instances occur.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. So obviously yesterday was a pretty heart-wrenching situation for our kids, but all the agents are trained the same way. We follow general response protocol. In the event that we are notified or we hear of some type of police activity, violence, shooting, suspicious persons, whatever it would be, we immediately put the building on a shelter in. The issue that we do face, which has not been outlined correctly, is what if we have 400 kids outside coming in during morning entry, right? Do we scurry them in? Do we get the adults? How do we do this? So all the agents are trained that if the bulk of your kids are in the building, so if the example would be if we have 1,500 kids assigned to the building and we know there's 1,100 inside and there's still morning entry, we have to get whatever's right by the door in and shut it down, right? And we're obviously making the notifications if it's live, we're making notifications directly to the precinct for emergency response and get as many people to safety as possible and then secure the masses, right? So that's the training that we're giving out, that we're receiving through the general response protocol. We do get situations where somebody runs to the building, says, I heard this, it could be a teacher, a dean, whomever's outside, that they heard the shots fired. At that point, it's usually in the middle of the day and we shut everything down and we secure the doors along with the building response team. And we still make the notifications via our radio to the precinct for emergency response. And they will confirm or dispel whatever that situation could have been, if it's going to impact the building throughout the day. One of the questions we get asked is, what happens if a kid doesn't make the doors closing when they're doing a shelter in? There's really no answer. We can't get a clear answer because the general response protocol never covered that scenario. So again, our people are trained. If you have 20, 30 kids right in front, get them inside, shelter in, close it down, don't open the door until we get a uniformed member of the service there that is able to clear the building and say that this event is not impacting the school in any way, shape, or form. That shelter in can last 5 minutes or 5 hours. It did happen, I believe it was last year in Brooklyn. We sheltered in something like 15, 20 schools in an area where there was some police activity. So everyone received the same training. It's all coming directly from the general response protocol. But again, there's a lot of things that aren't outlined clearly in those, so that we just go with what we believe is the safest thing for our kids.
Thank you for that overview. Do we have any questions?
It's Paulette again. I'm sorry. I do have a question. Officer Rangel, thank you so much for identifying that, what's in place right now isn't necessarily perfect and can definitely use some improvement. On the parent facing side, We try to support our parents as much as possible when we're made aware that incidences of like this are happening, because the parents' response is always to go to the school. And we always tell them, please don't go to the school, please stay at home. The school will communicate with you when the shelter in is lifted. Your children are okay inside the school. If you go to the school, they're not going to let you in. It's just going to frustrate you. You'll be putting yourself into danger. But we need to do better in terms of getting information out to parents, like in a timely fashion when a shelter in is happening. And I know that there's a lot of mechanical operational things that are going on, but there is nothing scarier than the unknown when it comes to this particular subject for our parents. Um, you know, and also like just to highlight, like for our children who are in high school, as Amy had said it previously, a lot of our students who are in inclusion or in a more freestanding type of situation, their schedules are layered. So if there is a shelter in at the school and the child hasn't left the house yet, like what is the school protocol to alert the student population? Do not come to school right now. We're in a shelter in. Because again, sometimes we have kids who are on their way to school when this happens, and when they get there, they're not allowed in. Where are they supposed to go? It's there's a lot of things that come up because of what happened yesterday and what happened last year at 36th Street when the shooting happened at the train station. Unfortunately, I was involved in both, so I saw firsthand the panic that our parents experienced and the confusion that our students were experiencing, and then trying to get them home as well, since all the trains were shut down and they didn't know how else to get home. So because of these things that have happened, we've had to ask these necessary questions. How are we getting information out to our families? How are we getting this information out to our students in a timely fashion so that we can keep them safe as possible when they're not allowed to come into the school?
Well, I can answer for our end with the NYPD. We do communicate certain things to area schools. I can give you the example of that just happened a couple of weeks ago. We had a shots fired job maybe 200 feet from the building, witnessed by a school aide. Personally, I sheltered in schools within a 10-block radius because it was involving two separate vehicles and we didn't know which direction they went and we didn't know what the situation was. So on our end, we try to notify as many schools in the area as possible. But I do know that there were talks as recently as just a few months ago of developing a Notify NYC type of thing, but specifically for each individual school. I know they were developing something. I don't know where that ended. It was a DOE thing where each individual school would have basically almost like an app that the principal or administrator can put out real-time information. If there's a shelter in, it tells parents, do not come in, children are safe, whatever the case may be. Because even for my shelter in that I just had, the few shelter ins that I had, you're right, the parents do flock to the school because as parents, our first thing is, let me get my kid out of there, right? But they don't realize that it's actually safer to stay inside the school because everything's locked. So that program that they're developing, I can follow up on it. I know Mark was part of that conversation. And they were looking at something where they were able to send out these notifications in real time. As far as PD to DOE, it's very hard to intertwine the agencies. Everyone's on a different system. So most of our notifications are usually like an email blast or a text blast to whomever we have in a group for that precinct or that district. So I could follow up with that and see where they fell with that conversation. I know it was a great plan because it gave the opportunity to be able to at least calm some of the fears when we have shelter in,
No, I appreciate that.
Thank
Any
you,
updates that you provide would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Healy and Vander. I just wanted to speak to, at least, I think it is on a school-based level at this point. I got a remind notification yesterday, and I just happened to be in that area, and my daughter happened to be in that area. She doesn't go to that site, but I think we have to reach out to our schools and the Remind app or whatever app you currently use within your school, because the school-based level is where we have to go at this point, until it's universal. I see Rima wrote Gamma. I'm not sure if that is in response to the app that Commander Christian Rangel was referring to. Any other questions? Rima was wondering if that was the system. So I think he's going to follow up. Any other questions? Just you can unmute yourself. Amy, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I have a question. So I know during the pandemic and now being post-pandemic, there has been a escalating situation around our youth, either inside of school or outside of school, or especially during dismissal time or right before dismissal time, things are happening. And I just wanted to applaud all the school safety agents that we have who could come to the actual issue in hand when it happens. But there has been times, and I know, a lot of this is due to the mental health of our students, and as well as a lot of the initiations that have been happening, during the pandemic when kids were not in school, and it's just a rising of unusual violence that we are happening. There has been, and I'm from the Bronx, there has been prank calls of alarm all the way going from our elementary and middle school during the day, and it sometimes is alarming because it's knowing that, like, after we were told afterwards, and I know there was notices that went out to the neighboring schools to be aware of these things, but they were made by some of our own young people. And I was told that by our local precinct, 52nd precinct, that these situations, when they're common, they're fully aware, they're prepared, but it's the actions of these students that they don't know when or why they're doing it, but it is the actions that really put people on unease. And they only have so many people capable of patrolling during school time and after school, but still, like, what is the process or protocol now to, like, really ensure these are, like, certain high neighborhoods or certain high high awareness of schools that are going through these specific things, because it just seems very common and it's done by, sadly, our youth. It's scary for a lot of our parents to know that even my second grader or third grader who's just kind of like, I don't want to go to school because I'm being let out of the school and there's like a lockdown and it's so common. Just curious as what that communication between the local precincts and the schools in the neighborhood.
Well, I know that that they have different entities now to deal with school and neighborhood issues, right? They have the neighborhood coordination officer, or the NCO. They also have the youth coordination officer, or the YCO. The YCOs, their schedules kind of outline our later days, right? So our dismissals, they want them out there for the dismissals. Whereas the NCO can change their schedule to come in early, be in the middle of the day, to kind of flow with the neighborhood and what issues they have in the neighborhood. But there are a few things in the works as far as schools and safe corridors and things like that. So years ago, School Safety Division had a uniform task force. It was a group of 250 police officers. They were stationed throughout the city around our major transit hubs, our bus lines, things like that. And their job was basically to secure the corridor, the to and from corridor for our children, right? And they would mix that in with our task force that we had as well. And they would be able to cover a lot of ground. Since they were disbanded and repurposed, we've only had the precinct to help us out with these things, right? So now there's gonna be a new program that's gonna bring back some of that help, right? It's going to consist of, I believe, 150 officers mixed between police officers and school safety agents that will be covering these areas again, right? So this is coming out probably by the end of the month, it's going to roll out. And we'll be back to covering those areas where the children feel they're unsafe. You know, we do know that some kids walk through multiple neighborhoods. And some of these neighborhoods, you know, they might not be welcoming because it's a neighborhood beef or whatever the case is, but these are still safe corridors, right? And this program hopefully will put some of the children at ease, the walking to and from, you know, because a scared child is a child that will bring a weapon to school to protect themselves, right? And that's something also that we want to avoid, right? We don't want them to fear the walk to school. We don't want them to fear waiting at the bus stop. So once this rolls out and we're full force with it, you know, we'll mix that in with the neighborhood coordination officer and the YCO program, and all three entities will come together and we'll be able to make things a lot better for them. So they won't have these concerns anymore, right?
Yeah, because especially in the Bronx, you know, a lot of the parents, they understand that the weapons are not a resort to securing our kids in the building when there's tons of bullying happen, but it does protect them on the streets, especially going to and from school as young as I've seen 8 and 9 year olds, which is something happen too often now, almost every day. So I appreciate the push out. And I know that some of our schools still have the lack of school safety that are not enough.
Yeah, that's still an ongoing issue. The attrition rate is still astronomical at this point. I know they're continuing to hire back to back, but you know, the police academy and the applicant investigation unit, they're working as fast as possible. Currently, we have 6,000 people signed up for the next test, which is a huge number. We've never really had that many people signed up for the exam at one time. Usually it's trickles. So hopefully out of that 6,000, we can get real numbers in by the end of the year.
Can you speak to the type of training that NYPD officers have in regards to their interactions with people with special needs or mental illness?
So everyone in the department that has to deal with the public goes through basically like an inclusion training, right? And they learn techniques, you know, how to de-escalate, how to identify things. One of the examples that I could give you is people who are hearing impaired, right? If an officer would approach somebody from behind a person who's hearing impaired, they may not turn around and follow orders. So they teach the officers how to find the signs that this person is hearing impaired and not just being disrespectful or blatant disregard for the law. So they do go through, it's a 3-day training, I believe, the last time that I did it, where they do go through multiple things when it comes to persons with disabilities, different type of impairments, and sensitivity to those things. Even as far as going to how to properly detain and arrest somebody who has some form of a disability that needs to be taken care of, so that they don't you know, violate or be disrespectful just because they violated the law. So there's a 3-day training. We all go through it, and it's done at the police academy. And they do, I believe it's annual. We have to do like a quick refresher on the computer, and everybody has to certify on that. If you don't certify, then they'll make sure that you get on as soon as possible. We do recertify every year for that. But there is a 3-day sensitivity training and inclusion training that we take part in as long as we're dealing with members of the public.
Okay, that's good to know. And I was also told when my daughter started high school that she should always wear her D75 ID, and that police officers and public servants are trained to identify that type of ID. I don't know if it's true or not, but she wears it all the time, just so that if she interacts with someone, they are aware that she has a disability. Sorry, I am muted. I muted myself and I wanted to speak. Does anyone else have any questions? And I just want you to know if there's anything in the text, in the chat, any questions, any comments, we can forward them to Mr. Rampersad and Mr. Shea. But do you have any other questions for Officer Rangel at this moment? I'm just gonna stream through.
I have one additional question, if you'll allow me, Aisha.
Sure. Go ahead.
I know that there's weekly meetings going on right now with the local precincts and principals to have these discussions about what safety can look like in the partnership. Are our D75 principals also on that distribution list? Because from the conversations I've had with D75 principals across the city, they don't even know what's happening. So I think it might be an oversight. It's not uncommon that our D75 principals are not necessarily CC'd on things that our general education counterparts may be involved in. So I just want to highlight that in case they are not.
I do know what you're talking about, the precinct commander meetings with the principals, correct?
Yes, yes.
So I just wrote it down. What we're gonna have to do is we'll do it at our level. We will sift through the Bronx, and we'll send an email to our colleagues in the other boroughs to add, however they split up the precincts, wherever your schools may fall, to include those principals in those precinct meetings, because the chief of department's office, they're not asking the commanders to do it, they're telling them to do it. So they will have to make sure they do it for all principals. So, and this includes Catholic school, charter school, like every school in the precinct must attend this meeting. So I'm assuming that District 75 was left out, probably as an oversight, but I will have them sift through our list here in the Bronx right away, get you guys added onto it if you fall within one of our 6 precincts, and then we'll send an email out to the other 8 commands and let them know to get those District 75 principals included in those weekly meetings as well, so that nobody misses out, because that's the opportunity where, you know, if there's a concern, especially with the uniform side of it, you can bring it up right then and there, and any updates or suggestions. You know, the precinct commanders have been very receptive during these meetings. So definitely we'll take care of that today.
Greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Spencer, you have a question? You can unmute.
Thank you, Aisha. Yeah, Paulette brings up a good point. Just for your point of reference, District 75 schools are often co-located. So a principal of a school may have 9 different sites. So it's important that precinct commanders are aware of the different schools that's in a particular building. And yeah, it's key that the District 75 principals get that information so they can send the right representative in that co-located school. Thanks for noting that and jotting that. Thanks, Paulette, for bringing that up. And I just came from my SLT meeting. Maybe that's something I want to make sure my principal is aware of as well. Maybe be aware of the precincts in the area and look for communication from them. So thanks for uplifting that.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Spencer. Do we have any other questions? I'm going to go through. As I look, I just want to thank everyone for being here today, and thank you, Officer Rangel, for coming. I reached out this morning and he accepted, and I thank him for being here and just your support for our district. I appreciate that. And if we don't have any other questions or any other concerns, and if you think of anything after, you feel free to email the council, and I will send anything to Officer Rangel or Mr. Rampersad if you think of anything later on. Thank you, Lupe, and I'm sorry I mispronounced your name earlier, but thank you all for being here. Paulette says that this was helpful, and we will continue our connection with you all. And if you have anything else, again, please contact us. This will be uploaded to our YouTube page for review and for public viewing, just like every other safety meeting. And I thank you, and you have a good day, everyone.
Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Be safe out there, everybody. So long.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer, for lifting this up.